Liverpool, June 2022, 5:47 p.m. An old man stood on a street corner with a guitar, worn denim jacket, black beanie pulled low over his eyes, a microphone stand, an open guitar case at his feet with a few coins scattered inside. To anyone walking past, he looked like just another street musician, another busker trying to make a few pounds, another invisible person that crowds flow around without really seeing. But this wasn't just another street musician. This was Paul McCartney, 80 years old, standing on the exact same corner where he'd bust 60 years earlier as a broke teenager trying to make enough money to buy guitar strings. Behind him was a pub. The sign read McCartney Pub, named after him decades ago, a tourist attraction now. People came from around the world to take photos, to drink where Paul McCartney used to drink, to stand where he used to stand, to touch the history. But nobody recognized the old man with the guitar. Nobody realized that history was standing right in front of them, playing the same songs, in the same spot, 6 decades later. And what happened in the next 45 minutes didn't just move the people who were there. It made headlines worldwide. It made a city cry. It reminded everyone why Paul McCartney wasn't just famous. He was essential. But to understand why Paul McCartney stood on that Liverpool street corner in June 2022, playing for coins like he was 18 years old again, you need to understand what that corner meant to him, what it represented, what it reminded him of every time he came back to Liverpool. June 1962 was when it started. Paul was 19 years old. John was 21. George was 19. They were the Beatles. But they weren't the Beatles yet. They were just 3 kids from Liverpool who played music, who dreamed, who believed they could be something but hadn't proven it yet. They played wherever they could. Clubs, pubs, street corners, anywhere people would listen. Anywhere they could make a few shillings. Enough for food, for rent, for the bus fare to the next gig. This particular corner, outside what would eventually become McCartney Pub, was one of their regular spots. Paul would stand there with his guitar, John beside him, George harmonizing. Ringo hadn't joined yet, and that would come later, but the 3 of them would play for hours, for crowds of 5 people, 10 people, sometimes just 2. Most people walked past, ignored them, dropped a coin if they were feeling generous, but mostly they were invisible. 3 more street musicians in a city full of dreamers who'd never make it. But Paul remembered one person who always stopped, an elderly woman, Mrs. Fletcher. She must have been 70, maybe older. She'd stand at the back of the small crowd every single time, never said anything, never requested songs, just listened. And at the end, she'd walk up and drop a £1 note in the guitar case. A pound, when most people dropped a penny or 2. One day Paul asked her why she gave so much, why she always stopped, why she cared about 3 kids who probably wouldn't amount to anything. Because you're going to be something special, she'd said. I can hear it in the way you play, in the way you sing, in the way you look at each other. You're going to change the world. And when you do, I want you to remember where you started, on this corner, playing for coins, being invisible, because that's what keeps you human. Paul never forgot that conversation, never forgot Mrs. Fletcher. And when the Beatles became famous, when they became the Beatles, when they became the biggest band in the world, Paul tried to find her, to thank her, to prove she'd been right. But she died in 1964, 2 years after that conversation. Never saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, never heard She Loves You on the radio, never knew she'd been right, that those 3 invisible kids on that corner had changed the world. Paul kept a photo of that corner in his wallet for 60 years, a reminder of where he came from, of who believed in him, of Mrs. Fletcher telling him to stay human. And in June 2022, 80 years old, standing at the end of an incredible career, Paul decided to go back. Not as Paul McCartney, the legend, as Paul, the kid who used to play for coins, the invisible street musician, the dreamer who hadn't proven anything yet. The street was busy, people everywhere. Tourists, locals, shopping, eating, living their lives. Paul set up his microphone, tuned his guitar, put a few coins in his case to seed it, the way buskers do. Make it look like people are already giving. Encourage others to do the same. Then he started playing. Blackbird. His voice was older now. Not the young, clear voice from 1968, but still beautiful, still powerful, still Paul. People walked past. Most didn't stop. A few paused, listened for a few seconds, dropped coins, moved on. The normal rhythm of street performance. Give a little, take a little, keep moving. But then something happened. A teenager stopped. Really stopped. Stood at the edge of the small crowd, listening, not to the song, to the voice. She pulled out her phone, not to record, to Google, to check, to confirm what she thought she was hearing. Her eyes went wide. She grabbed her friend's arm, whispered something. Her friend looked skeptical, then looked at Paul. Really looked. Past the beanie, past the aged face, past the anonymity, and saw him, Paul McCartney, the Paul McCartney, busking on a Liverpool street corner. The friend pulled out her phone, recorded, posted. I think Paul McCartney is busking on Matthew Street right now. Is this real? Someone confirm. Within minutes, the post had 100 comments. That's definitely him. Oh my God, is he okay? Why is he busking? This is incredible. Within 10 minutes, the crowd had grown from 5 people to 50, then 100, then 200. The street started filling up, not just tourists, locals, people who'd lived in Liverpool their whole lives, people who'd grown up with the Beatles, people who'd never thought they'd see Paul McCartney in person, certainly not like this. Paul kept playing. Let It Be. Yesterday. Here, there, and everywhere. Songs everyone knew. Songs that had soundtracked lives. Weddings, funerals, first kisses, last goodbyes. The songs that weren't just music. They were memories. They were moments. They were life. The crowd was silent. Not the polite silence of a concert audience waiting for the next song. The stunned silence of people witnessing something impossible. Something they'd never see again. Paul McCartney, 80 years old, playing on a street corner in Liverpool, where it all started. Like he was completing a circle. Coming home, an elderly man pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down his face. He stood at the front, just stood there, listening, crying. When Paul finished, Let It Be, the man spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. I saw you here 60 years ago. You were just a kid, playing this same corner. I was 20. I stopped and listened, and I told my girlfriend, those boys are going to be famous. She laughed at me, but I was right. I was right. Paul looked at him, really looked. What's your name? William Davies. William, do you remember what song we played that day? 60 years ago? William thought, hard, like he was reaching back through decades. Love Me Do. You played Love Me Do. It wasn't recorded yet, just 3 kids with guitars, but it was beautiful. Paul smiled. Then this one's for you. He played Love Me Do, 60 years later, on the same corner, for the same man, who'd believed in 3 invisible kids when nobody else did. The crowd erupted, not applause, sobbing. Hundreds of people, crying, not sad tears, grateful tears, overwhelmed tears. The kind that come from witnessing something so pure and beautiful and real that your heart can't contain it. Paul played for 45 minutes. Every song someone requested. Every song that mattered to someone in that crowd. And at the end, he looked at the hundreds of people surrounding him, at the phones recording, at the tears, at the joy. 60 years ago, I stood on this corner with John and George. We were nobody, just 3 kids with guitars and dreams. And one woman, Mrs. Fletcher, used to stop every time. She'd listen. She'd give us a pound. And she told me to remember where I started, to stay human, to never forget what it felt like to be invisible. His voice cracked. Mrs. Fletcher died before she could see us become famous, before she could know she was right. And I've carried that with me for 60 years. The reminder that success is meaningless if you forget where you came from. If you forget the people who believed in you. If you forget what it felt like to play for coins and hope someone cared. He looked at the guitar case, filled now with coins, and notes, and flowers, and letters. I don't need this money, but I needed this experience. I needed to remember what it felt like to be a street musician, to be invisible, to play because you love it, not because you're famous. That's why I came back. Not for you, for me. To remember, to feel, to be Paul from Liverpool instead of Paul McCartney the legend. He picked up the guitar case, walked to a young busker who'd been standing at the edge of the crowd. A girl, maybe 19, guitar on her back, nervous. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah, this is for you. All of it. Not because you need it, but because someone believed in me 60 years ago. And I want to believe in you. Keep playing. Keep dreaming. And when you make it, remember this corner. Remember this moment. Remember to stay human." He handed her the guitar case. Hundreds of pounds, maybe thousands. She started crying. "I can't. This is yours." "It was never mine. It's for the next dreamer, the next invisible kid with a guitar. That's you, take it." The crowd was silent again, watching, understanding. This wasn't about Paul McCartney being generous. This was about completing a circle, about paying forward what Mrs. Fletcher had given him 60 years ago, about remembering where he came from, about staying human. Paul picked up his guitar, waved to the crowd, and started walking. Not to a car, not to security, just walking. Through the streets of Liverpool, through the city that made him, through the place where 3 kids with guitars became the Beatles. The crowd followed. For blocks, hundreds of people, walking behind Paul McCartney, not asking for autographs, not screaming, just following, witnessing, being part of something rare, something real, something that would never happen again. Eventually, Paul stopped, turned around, smiled. "Go home, tell your families what you saw. Tell them Paul McCartney came back to where it started. Tell them he remembered. Tell them he stayed human. That's all I wanted. That's everything." And he walked away, into the Liverpool evening, alone, just Paul. Not the legend, not the icon, just the kid who used to play on street corners and dream about changing the world. The next day, the videos went viral. Millions of views. Paul McCartney busking in Liverpool. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. This is why he's the greatest. He came back to where it started. News outlets covered it. McCartney returns to roots. Liverpool Street, performance moves, city to tears. Paul McCartney proves he never forgot where he came from. But the most important story didn't make headlines. Sarah, the 19-year-old busker Paul gave the money to, used it to record her first album. Dedicated it to Paul. Titled it Where It Started. The album was beautiful, raw, honest. Everything that matters in music. 2 years later, she had a record deal, was touring, was making music that mattered. And in every interview, she told a story about Paul McCartney giving her everything he'd earned that day, about telling her to remember, about staying human. "Paul didn't just give me money," she said. "He gave me permission to dream, gave me proof that it's possible, gave me the reminder that if I make it, I need to remember where I started. I need to find my own Sarah in 20 years, my own invisible kid with a guitar. And I need to tell them the same thing Paul told me. Keep playing, keep dreaming, stay human." June 2022. Paul McCartney returned to a Liverpool street corner after 60 years. Played for coins like he was 18 years old again. Reminded a city why he mattered. Not because he was famous, because he remembered where he came from. Because he stayed human even when the world wanted him to be a god. That's the Paul McCartney nobody sees. The one who goes back, who completes circles, who pays forward what was given to him, who understands that success is meaningless if you forget the people who believed in you, if you forget what it felt like to be invisible, if you forget that you're still just a kid from Liverpool with a guitar and dreams. That's everything. Look, if this story moved you, do me a favor. Hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We're dropping these untold Beatles stories every single day. And trust me, the next one is even more powerful. Drop a comment and let me know. Where did you start? What corner do you need to go back to? And hey, turn those notifications on, Because next time we're telling the story of what happened when John Lennon found out a music teacher was using his songs without permission. What he did next changed music education forever. Remember, success is meaningless if you forget where you came from. And Paul McCartney proved that on a Liverpool street corner in 2022, when he went back to where it started. And remember to stay human.